she doesn't get addicted to love. She gets addicted to the man who becomes her mirror. The one who wakes up the chaos she hides from. That is the part most men never see. They think she falls for love, for comfort, for feeling safe. But no, she falls for her own reflection, for the man who brings her face to face with the storm inside her. Love to her is not peace. It is facing herself. It is the shaking feeling of seeing the part of herself she both fears and wants. And only one kind of man can wake that up. You see, every woman carries two worlds inside her. The one you can see that smiles, takes care of others, and follows rules, and the one you can't see that burns, eats everything up, and destroys. The first is what everyone sees, the second is private and special. And the man she becomes addicted to is the bridge between those two worlds. He doesn't need to be perfect. He doesn't even need to be kind. He simply has a special energy that breaks through her fake walls and touches what is forbidden. She won't tell you this. She can't, because what ties her to him is not thinking, not memories, not choosing. It is something older than words, a natural feeling, a pull built into the way desire works itself. So what makes a man addictive? Not just good looking. It isn't his looks. It isn't his money or success. It isn't how much he gives or how much he loves. It is his ability to wake up the tension she hides and survive it without backing down. When a woman meets such a man, something ancient happens. Her nervous system remembers chaos. Her emotions begin to swing back and forth, pleasure crashing into fear, attraction crashing into pushing away. The more she feels both extremes, the deeper he sinks into her mind. Addiction begins there. Not in love, not in romance, but in contrast, the crash between danger and safety, distance and closeness, control and giving in. He becomes the rhythm through which she finds herself again. And that rhythm, once it begins, rewires her mind. She starts to connect him with intensity, the highs, the lows, the silence she can't predict. Every moment with him feels alive because every emotion is bigger. To her, this is life. Not peace, not comfort, but the dance of not knowing. And the man who can keep that push and pull going, he becomes her gravity. Most men don't understand this. They try to win her through being steady, through making her feel safe, through telling her everything. They believe that love equals giving, that safety equals connection. But to the feminine mind, safety is death, being predictable is numbness. Emotional control, when shown on the outside, kills the mystery that keeps her awake. That is why so many men lose her the moment they lock her down. If you ever felt her pull away the moment you became safe, this is why. You became flat in her nervous system. The wave died. The contrast faded. Her addiction ended. You see, a woman's emotional wiring is built not for comfort, but for intensity. Every story she loves, every song she plays, every memory she can't forget, has one thing in common: tension. Without tension, there is no life. Without not knowing, there is no desire. She doesn't want the man who always stays. She wants the man she can't fully own yet can't forget. Because in that puzzle, she feels the most alive. That is the hidden law behind female addiction. It's not about love. It's about emotional speed. The man who creates it and controls it owns the rhythm of her mind. But here's the twist. Most men destroy this law the moment they taste connection. They mistake closeness for permission and being there for owning her. They start chasing her emotions instead of directing them. And in doing so, they lose the center, the pull that made her circle around them in the first place. Addiction always begins with contrast, the crash between chaos and control. The masculine provides the container. The feminine provides the wild energy. When those forces dance, the chemistry becomes divine. When one side falls, the magic dies. So, the real question isn't how to make her love you. It's how to keep her emotional addiction going without becoming her slave. In this video, you'll see the hidden law, the dark system that explains why she can't stop thinking about certain men, even the ones who hurt her. You'll understand why some men stay in her mind for years, while others disappear from memory within days. You'll see why her heart breaks for the gentle ones, but her body remembers the ruthless. And why the man she swears she hates is the one she keeps dreaming about at night. Because addiction isn't born in comfort. It's born in the tension between love and power, between giving in and fighting back, between what she wants and what she cannot control. Most men never see this system. They think she's emotional, unpredictable, unstable. But the truth is, she's wired for swinging back and forth. And only a man who knows how to hold that chaos without drowning in it becomes the one she cannot escape. In this video, you will see 3 truths. First, you will understand why women are not addicted to men, but to the emotional frequency they experience around them. Second, you'll learn the 3 masculine energies that create that frequency, the unreadable, the anchored, and the ruthless. And third, you'll see how to reverse the situation once she pulls away. How to turn distance into gravity and silence into power. But the part most men miss, the dark law that controls all emotional addiction, will be shown in part 5. Stay until the end because what you're about to hear is not dating advice. It's the anatomy of obsession. It's the psychology of power, of how emotion becomes dependence, and how dependence becomes worship. Every man wants to be loved. Few men dare to be unforgettable. But the difference between the two is not charm. It's control. Not control over her actions, but over the rhythm of her emotions. That rhythm is everything. The rise, the pause, the fall, the silence. When you master that, she doesn't just remember you, she replays you over and over. Because your energy becomes the beat of her inner world. Addiction isn't random. It's built on purpose. It's a pattern repeated until her nervous system forgets how to exist without your frequency. And the man who understands this doesn't chase, doesn't beg, doesn't explain. He simply controls the rhythm. And the rhythm controls her. So now you stand at the edge of the truth. She doesn't love you because of what you give her. She loves you because of what she becomes in your gravity. She doesn't get addicted to love. She gets addicted to the man who mirrors the chaos she hides and holds it with unshaken calm. That's the difference between attraction and addiction. And it's time you learned how to become that man. Part 1, the emotional drug. Every woman's mind is wired to chase one thing. Emotional intensity. Not comfort, not peace, not safety, intensity. Because without intensity, she feels nothing. And for the feminine mind, nothing is death. She doesn't crave you. She craves the way she feels when she is around you. You are not the source. You are the trigger. The spark that lights up a chemical storm inside her. A storm that she calls love. But it isn't love. It's the drug. The emotional drug. You see, her biology is designed to make emotions bigger. It's her radar for connection, her way of moving through life. But the same sensitivity that makes her intuitive also makes her addicted. When emotion becomes too stable, her system gets used to it. The dopamine fades. The chemistry dulls. And the man who once made her heart race now feels invisible. That is why she can leave the man who gave her everything and still haunt the man who gave her chaos. Because chaos feeds the addiction. Every emotional high needs a low to exist. Without contrast, there is no thrill. Without not knowing, there is no pull. It's the unpredictability that hooks her. The silence between your words, the pause before your touch, the tension before you pull away. Her body reads these ups and downs as life itself. When she feels both desire and danger, her brain releases dopamine, the same chemical that drives gamblers, addicts, and dreamers. It's not the reward that hooks them. It's the risk. It's not being sure that excites, it's waiting and wondering. And the woman who once swore she only wanted peace will find herself restless in your calm because her nervous system doesn't understand peace. It only recognizes patterns of excitement. She's not addicted to you. She's addicted to the rhythm you create, the dance between warmth and pulling away, between power and holding back, between being there and being gone. Every text you delay, every glance you hold back, every moment you refuse to explain yourself, it deepens the pattern. It makes her nervous system chase meaning because the feminine mind cannot stand emotional emptiness. It must fill it. And she fills it with thoughts of you. That's why when you become predictable, she disconnects. Not because she stopped caring, but because the dopamine loop collapsed. If you ever felt her pull away the moment you became safe, this is why. Safety feels good for a moment, but the drug wears off quickly. And once she knows she has you, the game ends. The mind stops releasing dopamine when the outcome is certain. And the woman who once held on to you now drifts away, searching without knowing for the next emotional spike. It's cruel. It's irrational. It's biological. It's the hidden structure of female psychology. Most men never learn this law. They think love is straightforward. Build trust, give love, stay loyal. But emotion isn't straightforward. It's rhythmic. It swings between craving and release, chasing and backing away, connection and emptiness. The man who can lead this rhythm becomes unforgettable. The man who can't becomes background noise. Every woman has a limit, a point where she feels both terrified and alive. The man who brings her to that edge and then pulls back before she collapses plants himself in her nervous system. He becomes her pulse. That's why she remembers the man who argued with her more clearly than the one who agreed with everything. She remembers the silence after the fight more than the flowers after the apology because in the tension she felt and in feeling she was alive. The emotional drug is not about pleasure. It's about sensation. It doesn't matter whether it's joy or pain as long as it's intense. Intensity equals meaning. Meaning equals addiction. That's why she can't stop checking your messages. Why she replays old conversations in her head. Why she watches your absence more than she ever valued your presence. Because the withdrawal is part of the drug. It's the come down that keeps her chasing the next hit. You've seen it before. The woman who says she's done but never truly leaves. The one who blocks you then unblocks you. Who swears she hates you then texts you late at night. She's not lying. She's just chemically trapped between craving and pushing away. The masculine mistake is believing you can fix this by loving her harder. But love doesn't heal addiction. It kills it. Because love removes the tension and tension is the core of her desire. That's why the man who always tries to please her becomes invisible and the man who pulls away with purpose becomes magnetic. He is the dealer of emotion. She depends on him for the highs and the lows. In psychology, they call this intermittent reinforcement, a pattern where rewards are unpredictable. It's the strongest form of training known to the human brain. Slot machines use it. So do toxic relationships. The not knowing keeps the dopamine alive. And once it starts, her mind begins to loop, waiting, wondering, wanting. The more she waits, the stronger the craving becomes. Her emotions start to circle the man who provides the ups and downs. And that's how emotional power is born. This isn't manipulation. It's awareness. Understanding the rhythm doesn't mean you must abuse it. It means you must stop killing it with your need for reassurance. Because every time you explain yourself, every time you give too much, every time you try to make her understand, you collapse the mystery. You flatten the wave. You remove the oxygen that her desire breathes. A woman doesn't want a therapist. She wants a trigger, a pulse. A man who stands calm at the center of her chaos, who doesn't chase her storm, but commands its direction. That calm, that container is what her biology reads as strength. Because strength doesn't always roar. Sometimes it's silence. Sometimes it's refusing to react. She will test that calm. She will push it. She will shove until she finds the edge because she needs to feel the edge. The boundary that proves she can't move you. When she finds it, she relaxes. Not because she understands it, but because she finally feels your gravity. In that gravity, her chaos finds rhythm. Her emotion finds direction. Her addiction finds its source. But addiction always begins with contrast, the crash between chaos and control, between her emotional wildness and your stillness, between her need to feel and your power to regulate. She doesn't get addicted to your love. She gets addicted to your ability to create contrast because in that contrast, she finds herself again. The man who understands this stops chasing her emotions and starts leading them. He learns when to pull back, when to speak, when to disappear, when to let silence do the work. Because silence is not absence. Silence is power. It makes her mind echo with your presence. And every unanswered question becomes another thread that ties her back to you. In the end, the emotional drug isn't about chaos or cruelty. It's about rhythm, the sacred pulse of attraction. When you control that rhythm, you don't just attract her. You rewrite her chemistry. She may leave your bed. She may swear she's done. But she will never escape the pattern you created inside her. And once you understand that, you stop competing with other men. Because addiction has no competition. It only has the source. That is the first law of emotional power. The understanding that she doesn't chase men. She chases the rhythm that makes her feel alive. And the man who knows how to hold that rhythm becomes the pulse she can't live without. Part 2, The Three Forces. She doesn't fall for what you say. She falls for the frequency of your presence. Words reach her ears, but presence reaches her nervous system. And that's where the addiction begins. Presence isn't about being there physically. It's the invisible field you carry, your emotional gravity. When that gravity is strong, she orbits. When it weakens, she escapes. There are three masculine frequencies that create this gravity. Three forces that make a man not just desirable, but addictive. They are not techniques. They are states of being. You don't perform them. You live them. The first is the unreadable man. The second is the anchored man. The third is the ruthless lover. Each wakes up a different layer of her mind. The instinctual, the emotional, and the primal. Together they form the triangle of addiction. Let's begin with the unreadable man. He is not mysterious because he hides. He is mysterious because he reveals nothing by accident. His silence is not emptiness. It's tension. Every word he holds back becomes a mirror for her imagination. She begins to guess, to wonder, to fill the gaps with fantasy. The feminine mind is meaning-focused. It seeks emotional sense. When she cannot decode a man's energy, her brain lights up. Confusion becomes curiosity. Curiosity becomes obsession. The unreadable man knows this. He doesn't explain himself. He lets her uncertainty grow roots because uncertainty is the soil where desire blooms. She feels drawn to him without knowing why. Every silence feels heavy. Every look feels loaded with unspoken power. And in that uncertainty, her mind starts to orbit him like a planet circling a dark star. He doesn't chase. He doesn't reassure. He doesn't correct what she thinks. He simply remains a blank screen onto which she projects her fantasies and fears. And the more she projects, the deeper she ties herself to him emotionally. Because she's not addicted to him, she's addicted to the mystery she creates around him. He becomes the question she can't answer. And that question becomes her cage. Then there is the anchored man. If the unreadable man creates her uncertainty, the anchored man stops her chaos. He is calm, not passive, but in charge of himself. His emotions move, but never spill over. He feels everything, yet is owned by nothing. In his presence, her storms have nowhere to go. Her attempts to push, to shake, to test, they all collapse against his calmness. And that collapse wakes up something primal in her. Safety through giving in. Every woman beneath her noise longs to rest, but she cannot rest with a man who shakes under her emotions. She can only rest when she meets unmovable strength. The kind of strength that doesn't need to prove itself. The anchored man doesn't react to her highs or lows. He doesn't mirror her wildness. He absorbs it. And in doing so, he becomes her grounding point, the still center in her internal hurricane. She starts to crave his calm the same way an addict craves balance after a high because his steadiness gives her body contrast. Her nervous system trained for chaos finds relief in his silence, in his unshakable presence. She may call him cold. She may accuse him of not caring. But what she truly feels is gravity. His not reacting isn't rejection. It's power. A man who doesn't react cannot be controlled. And a man who cannot be controlled becomes addictive. The anchored man is the cure to her own disorder. She tests him not because she doubts him, but because she needs to feel the boundary that defines him. Every failed attempt to shake him deepens her unconscious respect. She doesn't choose to desire him. Her biology chooses for her. Because in the order of emotional power, calm is king. And then there is the ruthless lover. He is the man who gives pleasure and takes it away. The man who opens the door to ecstasy, then closes it before she can own it. He doesn't offer her love. He offers her giving in. He gives her intensity in doses. He knows that too much closeness kills the mystery and too much distance kills the connection. So he moves like a tide, coming forward, pulling back, coming forward again. This rhythm drives her insane, but it also enslaves her. Every act of passion becomes a trade. Every pulling away becomes punishment. Every return becomes reward. He doesn't need to manipulate. His holding back does the work. The ruthless lover works on the level of instinct. He wakes up her animal mind. The part that doesn't think, only feels. She doesn't think about him. She responds to him. Her body recognizes him before her words can. He's not cruel. He's exact. He understands that pleasure without tension becomes numbness. So he holds back, not out of arrogance, but out of mastery. Because in every woman lives a puzzle. She wants to give in, but only to the man who could take her, yet chooses not to. That choice, that conscious holding back creates the cycle of dopamine and withdrawal. And withdrawal is what seals the addiction. When she can't predict his rhythm, her brain starts to chase it. Every absence becomes an ache. Every return a rush. He becomes her nervous system's compass. The center around which her emotions spin. You've seen this before. When she says she hates you, yet keeps coming back. When she swears she's done yet can't resist the pull, it's not logical, it's biological. Because what she's addicted to is not love, it's up and down. The unreadable man gives her mystery. The anchored man gives her stability. The ruthless lover gives her wild energy. Together they form the complete trinity of addiction, mystery, safety, and danger. Without one, the rhythm collapses. Most men work only from one frequency. They're either too mysterious and she feels anxious, or too calm and she feels bored, or too intense and she burns out. But the man who can balance all three, who can be unreadable enough to intrigue, anchored enough to contain, and ruthless enough to restart chaos when needed, becomes irresistible because he mirrors the full spectrum of her feminine nature. He doesn't just give her emotions, he gives her meaning. And meaning is the ultimate high. In his presence, she feels both safe and unsafe, known and unknown, desired and denied. It's that two-sidedness that keeps her hooked. This is not seduction. It's polarity, the timeless dance between chaos and order, between the serpent and the sun. You can't fake these states. You must become them. You can't memorize their lines. You must live their essence. To be unreadable, you must let go of the need to be understood. To be anchored, you must conquer your own chaos first. To be ruthless, you must move past the fear of losing her. Only then can your presence carry the charge that her body recognizes as power. Not power through control, but through internal ownership of yourself. The woman doesn't fall for what you do. She falls for the field you give off. Your tone, your stillness, your silence. They speak louder than 1,000 declarations of love. That's why the most addictive men rarely speak much, because energy speaks first and she hears it louder than words. Every glance, every pause, every act of holding back. These are your languages of control. They tell her nervous system that you are not a boy seeking approval but a man who commands rhythm. When you live the three forces, you stop reacting to her emotions and start directing them. You become the composer of her chaos. And in that moment, the situation shifts. She no longer feels like she's chasing love. She's chasing herself through you. Because every addictive connection has a hidden mirror. And what she's really addicted to is herself through you. Part 3, The Mirror Effect. She doesn't see you. She sees the part of herself she can't face. That's the secret every addictive connection hides. You are not just a man to her. You are a mirror. The one that reflects everything she pushes down, denies, and fears. When she looks at you, she doesn't really see you. She sees the pieces of her own nature. The light she hides, the darkness she's ashamed of, the chaos she pretends doesn't exist. You wake it up. You make her feel it. And for that reason, she both desires and resents you, because the mirror never flatters. It exposes. And exposure is the most dangerous form of closeness. The man she becomes addicted to isn't the one who gives her love. It's the one who breaks the illusion of who she thought she was. He tears down her self-image, showing the raw animal beneath the woman she presents to the world. And in that confrontation, something ancient happens. The civilized woman dissolves. The primal feminine wakes up. She feels herself again, unfiltered, unguarded, unholy. And that sensation, though terrifying, is intoxicating. He becomes the ritual that reconnects her to the truth she hides from herself. Every touch, every silence, every act of power becomes a mirror, forcing her to see both her pleasure and her shame. She says she hates him, but what she truly hates is what she sees of herself in him. Because through him, she meets the shadow she spent her whole life pushing down. Carl Jung once said, "Until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life, and you will call it fate." That's what happens here. She doesn't know why she keeps coming back to him, but she does. Because through him, fate becomes visible. He shows her the hidden scripts running beneath her mind, the patterns of attraction, self-destruction, and longing she cannot escape. He doesn't write those scripts. He simply turns them on. And that turning on is the root of addiction. The most dangerous man is not the one who hurts her body. It's the one who wakes up her unconscious. Because once she has felt herself at that depth, she can never return to the surface. When a woman meets such a man, something that can't be reversed occurs. He becomes a psychological print. Her body remembers his frequency. Her soul recognizes him as the trigger of her awakening. Even when he's gone, she still feels him. Not as a person, but as a mirror that lives inside her. Every man after him is compared to that reflection, and none match it. That's why she can't forget him. Because forgetting him would mean forgetting herself. The man who triggers this reflection doesn't try to impress her. He doesn't seek approval. He doesn't even seek love. He simply exists as he is, whole, unapologetic, unhidden. His darkness doesn't shame him. His desire doesn't apologize. His silence doesn't beg to be understood. And that's what makes him magnetic, because she sees in him a freedom she doesn't allow herself to have. He becomes her fantasy of liberation. Not because he gives it to her, but because he lives it without needing her permission. That's why she can't control him. He doesn't live in her rules, her rhythm, or her definitions. He stands outside her emotional logic. And that defiance is what bends her reality. Through him, she experiences the forbidden sides of her nature. Lust without guilt, giving in without shame, rage without consequence. He becomes her chaos, her confession, her altar. And every time she resists him, the resistance only deepens her attachment. This is why the more she resists you, the deeper you live in her. Because resistance is energy, and energy, once directed toward you, even as hatred, still feeds the connection. She thinks she's breaking free. But every emotional reaction strengthens the mirror. Her obsession is not love. It's recognition. You reflect something in her that she cannot unsee. The wound, the wildness, the pushed-down craving to feel alive. And here lies the puzzle. The deeper the pain, the deeper the bond. Because pain proves intensity. And intensity to the feminine mind feels like truth. She doesn't trust peace. She trusts the man who can shatter her peace and rebuild it. The one who exposes her vulnerability then commands it. The one who forces her to give in not because he demands it but because she wants to. Addiction is never about comfort. It's about the return to the forbidden. And you, if you become that mirror, are not just a lover. You are the reflection of her inner abyss. You will notice something about women who have met such men. Their eyes carry a strange restlessness. A part of them is forever wandering, searching for that same reflection. No matter how much time passes, no matter how stable their next relationship is, they still crave the chaos that once made them feel real, because the mirror doesn't die. It becomes part of them. The man who understands this never tries to win her heart. He owns her memory. He becomes the ghost that haunts her calm. And yet, most men destroy this mirror. They can't hold the reflection. They flinch when she projects her chaos onto them. They seek approval. They want to be seen as good, gentle, loving. They try to clean the mirror. But a mirror that only shows light loses its power. The addictive man lets her project everything: love, hate, guilt, lust, and reflects none of it back. He holds it with stillness, without defense, without apology, because he knows the projection isn't personal. It's primal. She is not reacting to him. She's reacting to herself through him. And when he stays calm through the storm, she feels something terrifying: reverence, because he has seen her at her ugliest and remained unshaken. That unshakable presence makes him divine in her mind. He becomes the symbol of her transformation. The man who didn't rescue her but revealed her. This is the ultimate form of emotional power: to hold her reflection without collapsing into it. To remain the still mirror in which she meets both her light and her shadow. She can't leave that, because leaving it would mean leaving the truth of herself. And no woman walks away from the man who made her feel seen beyond her mask. He doesn't demand her loyalty. She gives it naturally, not as devotion to him, but as reverence to what she becomes in his presence. That is the secret of the mirror effect. The man who wakes up a woman's shadow becomes the keeper of her light. The man who forces her to face her chaos becomes the anchor of her calm. And the man who reflects her truest nature becomes unforgettable. Not because of love, not because of romance, but because he became the ritual through which she found herself again. And once a woman has met herself through you, no other man can replace that reflection. But most men destroy this mirror by seeking approval instead of control. Part 4. When you lose your center, the moment you chase her emotion, you become her reflection, not her gravity. And that's the moment she stops feeling you. Every man thinks he loses a woman because she changed. But in truth, He loses her the moment he leaves his center, the invisible point of masculine gravity that once held her orbit in place. When you react to her emotions, you give up the throne of control. You abandon your role as the conductor of rhythm and become the instrument being played. You start mirroring her storms instead of containing them. You start explaining, begging, justifying, trying to make her understand. But understanding is not what she seeks. It's never what she seeks. What she truly seeks is a man who can hold her emotions without being eaten by them. A man who remains unshaken while she spins in her chaos. The moment you chase, you prove that her chaos rules you. And the man ruled by emotion loses his gravity. You see, emotional gravity isn't loud. It's silent, heavy, unmovable. It doesn't beg. It doesn't argue. It simply exists, like the sun, pulling everything into its orbit by the power of stillness alone. But the moment you begin to spin around her, you flip the natural order. You stop being the sun and become the planet. And no woman is addicted to a planet. She's addicted to the man who remains the center. The man who moves with purpose, not reaction. The man whose silence speaks more authority than another man's apologies. When you lose your center, everything collapses quietly. At first, she doesn't notice. She even appreciates your vulnerability, your openness. But underneath, something begins to die. The tension, the mystery, the danger. Because danger to her is not physical harm. It's emotional uncertainty. The kind that makes her heart race and her breath catch. The kind that keeps her wondering, what is he thinking? When you give her all your explanations, you kill that uncertainty. You make her feel safe, but not alive. And safety without aliveness feels like death to the feminine. She begins to drift. Her eyes no longer search for you. Her messages grow colder, shorter, polite. You can feel it. The warmth turning into duty. The curiosity fading into courtesy. If you've ever felt her eyes turn cold overnight, that's when she stopped feeling your gravity. Because gravity is not about closeness. It's about polarity. It's about tension. The invisible string stretched between your stillness and her movement. When you lose that, she no longer feels pulled. It's a puzzle. You try to win her by showing more love. But the more you show, the less she feels. Because when you try to prove your worth, you silently admit that you doubt it. And a man who doubts his worth forces her to become his emotional leader. He demands reassurance and she becomes the provider. The roles flip. And when polarity flips, desire dies. She can't desire the man she must emotionally mother. She can't crave the man she must constantly reassure. Her biology rebels. Her instincts retreat because attraction is built on difference. And when you chase, you erase it. She begins to test you softly then harshly. She raises her voice, pulls away affection, argues with your logic, not because she wants to hurt you, but because she wants to feel your edge again. She's not testing your love. She's testing your gravity. She wants to know if the man she once gave in to still exists beneath the softness. If he's still capable of standing firm when her emotions turn violent. She wants to feel that he can't be swayed, not even by her. If you crumble, she feels disgust. If you fight her chaos with more chaos, she feels fear. But if you remain calm, completely calm, she feels something far deeper. Remembering. Because calm is not weakness. It's power in its purest form. It's the silent statement. You can move, but you cannot move me. That's when she feels the gravity return. Not through your words, but through your presence. Not through what you do, but through what you don't do. A woman feels attraction the same way she feels danger, through uncertainty. When you remove uncertainty, you remove attraction. That's why she keeps coming back to men she doesn't understand. Not because they're better, but because they wake up her instinct to figure out, to decode, to feel. When you lose your center, you become predictable. And predictability is emotional death. She stops thinking about you, not because she wants to, but because there's nothing left to think about. You've given her every answer, every reassurance, every confession. And now there's no space left for her imagination to play. The feminine doesn't fall in love through logic. She falls through mystery. And mystery can only exist when you hold something back. Not secrets, but energy. Not lying, but holding back. The addictive man is not see-through. He's half see-through. You can see the outline of his soul, but never the full picture. And that's what keeps her chasing the light through his shadow. Losing your center means losing your relationship with silence. The silence that once made her nervous. The silence that once made her crave your approval. When you fill that silence with explanations, you suffocate her desire. Because desire needs space. It grows in absence. It feeds on distance. It dies in too much. So many men confuse closeness with connection. They think the more they give, the more she'll stay. But what keeps her there isn't closeness, it's containment. Containment is not coldness. It's strength. It's the ability to stay centered while she swings between love and fury. While she says one thing and feels another. While she tests every inch of your boundary to feel the edges of her own. When you can hold her chaos without flinching, she relaxes into her feminine. But when you react, when you become emotional, needy, defensive, you force her to rise into her masculine, and the polarity flips. Now she's the stable one, and you're the storm. And she resents you for it, not consciously, but biologically. Because deep down, every woman longs to give in, but only to the man who can contain her without being eaten. That's why when you lose your center, she loses her addiction. You've removed the danger. And addiction requires risk. Without the possibility of loss, there is no tension. Without tension, there is no intensity. Without intensity, there is no desire. You don't rebuild attraction by giving more. You rebuild it by pulling away with purpose, by returning to silence, by becoming unpredictable again. Not through games, but through gravity. When she senses that you no longer need her approval, that her emotions no longer control your actions, her nervous system resets. Curiosity returns. The polarity begins to reverse again. She starts wondering where you went, why your energy feels distant yet focused, why your presence feels heavier even in silence. She starts to feel you again. Not through your chasing, but through your absence. Because presence is not closeness. It's power. It's the weight of your emotional stillness pressing against her chaos. That's what she truly craves, not your love, your calm, not your words, your edge. When you lose your center, you lose her instinct. When you regain it, you restart the addiction. So, how do you rebuild it? Without manipulation, without chasing. That's the hidden law you're about to learn next. The law that controls every emotional situation. The one that separates men who are forgotten from men who become impossible to erase. Part 5. The hidden law of emotional control. You don't control her by giving emotions. You control her by controlling the rhythm of her emotions. This is the hidden law. The law of rhythm, the one that controls all attraction, all obsession, all addiction. Every emotion has a pulse. Every relationship is built on a rhythm. Tension and release, closeness and distance, chaos and calm. The man who commands that rhythm doesn't need to chase. He doesn't need to beg, convince, or prove. He simply becomes the one her nervous system can't stop syncing with. Because control doesn't come from owning. It comes from regulating. When you know how to change her emotional frequency, when to give, when to hold back, when to rise, when to fall, you become the center of her inner world. Her body, her thoughts, her breath start to adapt to your timing. That's the moment control begins. You see, emotion is movement. When she feels everything too fast, she becomes unstable. When she feels nothing, she becomes numb. But the man who can balance that wave, who can take her from tension to release, from giving in to longing, becomes the conductor of her reality. That's what the law of rhythm is about. It's not manipulation. It's precision. It's awareness of polarity, the natural swinging between absence and presence. The feminine mind needs that swinging to feel alive. She doesn't want constant comfort. She wants the dance, the contrast between warmth and pulling away. Because that contrast is what produces the chemical she calls love, but what you now know is addiction. You control that rhythm not by chasing, but by timing. When she demands a reaction, stay silent. When she pulls away, hold your ground. When she opens her heart, give connection, but only a taste. Then back away before she learns to predict you. This rhythm, connection, pulling away, silence, return is the invisible choreography of desire. Every addictive man moves within it naturally. Every forgettable man breaks it without knowing. He breaks it when he floods her with attention, when he confesses too soon, when he seeks approval instead of command. Because every time he does, he removes the very tension that keeps her pulse alive. You must understand something. She doesn't fall for steadiness. She falls for contrast. She doesn't crave your love. She craves your absence between moments of love because the absence makes the love real. It makes her imagination work. It makes her feel. Her mind can't stay addicted to what it fully understands. It must chase the unknown. That's why the men she can never read are the ones she never forgets. Now you understand why she can't stop thinking about the man she couldn't fully read. He didn't feed her with constant attention. He fed her with rhythm. Moments of presence that made her bloom, followed by silence that made her ache. And in that ache, she found meaning. Because longing is the most powerful drug known to the feminine mind. She tells herself she wants closure, but what she really wants is tension. Closure ends the story. Tension keeps it alive. That's the puzzle of desire. She chases completion, but once she gets it, she loses interest because completion kills movement. And movement is the essence of her emotional life. The man who understands this never over-explains, never overgives, never removes the mystery that keeps her heart trembling. He doesn't push down emotion. He regulates it. He becomes the metronome of her inner symphony. And once her mind starts sinking to his rhythm, she becomes bound, not by will, but by chemistry. She thinks she's in control because she decides when to call, when to leave, when to fight. But all those movements are reactions to his timing. He gives her a moment of connection, a look, a phrase, a silence charged with presence. Her body opens, her defenses drop. Then he steps back, not out of cruelty, but out of mastery. In that pulling away, she feels the absence like oxygen leaving her lungs. Her body starts to crave the next breath, his return. And when he reappears, the relief floods her with dopamine. That cycle, tension, pulling away, relief, is what rewires her brain around him. It's not manipulation. It's biology. And once it begins, it becomes nearly impossible to escape. Because addiction doesn't require chains, it only requires rhythm. You become the unpredictable thing she can't predict. Her mind tries to guess your moves. But the unpredictability keeps the dopamine alive. You turn her emotional system into a loop, one she willingly enters again and again. She tells herself she's in control, that she's choosing this. But what she's really choosing is the chemistry you create. Because you've become the source of both her pleasure and her pain. She will call it connection. She will call it intensity, but in truth, it's dependency, a rhythm she cannot regulate on her own. That's why the more she tries to detach, the deeper she falls. Because detaching doesn't break addiction. It makes it stronger. Every moment without you increases the craving. Every silence makes your presence louder. Every distance makes your gravity stronger. You don't need to fight for attention. You need to control the intervals. You don't need to be everywhere. You need to know when to disappear. A man who understands rhythm understands timing better than words. He knows that silence is not absence. It's waiting. He knows that backing away is not weakness, it's strengthening. That's how you reverse the game without manipulation. You stop chasing her energy and start mastering your own, because the one who controls his own emotions controls the rhythm of both. That's the essence of emotional power. Not power over her, but power over your own urges. Your calm becomes the field where her chaos dances. Your detachment becomes the container that gives her emotion shape. And in that structure, she feels both terrified and safe. That's the puzzle that binds her. Most men lose this power because they confuse love with giving in. They believe that giving more means connecting deeper. But love without rhythm becomes noise. And noise numbs emotion. She doesn't want a man who drowns her in affection. She wants a man who makes her feel herself more clearly in his presence, even if that means pain. The rhythm creates that contrast, a push and pull between comfort and uncertainty. It keeps her nervous system alert. It keeps her desire awake. She doesn't know why she keeps thinking about you. She just does, because her emotions still move to the beat you left behind, your silence, your timing, your unpredictability. They echo in her body long after you're gone. That's the law of rhythm. It doesn't demand owning. It only requires control. Control of pacing. Control of contrast. Control of when to give, when to take, and when to vanish. Once you master that, you no longer fight for power. Power comes to you because your energy becomes the reference point of her emotional world. She may resist you. She may even hate you. But she cannot unhook because the rhythm owns her. Her thoughts chase your silence. Her body reacts to your absence. Her emotions orbit your calm like a satellite around gravity. Addiction isn't about love. It's about gravity. And the man who masters rhythm becomes gravity itself. She never loved you for what you gave her. She loved you for who she became in your gravity. That's the truth every man learns too late. You thought she loved the way you cared. You thought she loved your effort, your sacrifices, your words. But she didn't. She loved the version of herself that appeared when she was under your pull. She loved the woman she became when she felt your presence. The woman who felt more alive, more chaotic, more real. She loved the pulse that ran through her body when you looked at her like no one else dared to. She loved the danger of losing control. She loved how for a moment she didn't have to be put together, logical, or perfect. She loved how she could feel and blame it on you. That is the secret of addiction. It's never about what you give. It's about what she feels herself become in your presence. You weren't the destination. You were the mirror that made her remember who she was beneath her masks. And in that reflection, she found her most forbidden truth. She doesn't want safety. She wants to feel herself fully, to collapse into her chaos, to lose control. But only around a man who doesn't. That's why when you held your center, she melted. And when you lost it, she vanished. Because when you lost control of yourself, you broke the mirror that showed her the depth of her own emotion. You removed the field where her addiction could live. She didn't stop loving you. She stopped feeling herself through you. And once a woman no longer feels herself in your gravity, she leaves. Not out of anger, not out of betrayal, but out of emotional starvation. Every man who's ever watched her eyes grow cold knows this moment. It's not rejection. It's disconnection. You stopped being the man who woke up her chaos and became the man who reacted to it. That's the moment the polarity dies. That's the moment she starts dreaming of someone else. Not another man, but another version of herself. The version that used to come alive around you. She doesn't miss you. She misses who she was when she was with you. That's the brutal truth. And that truth will either destroy you or transform you. Because once you understand it, you stop chasing her. You stop trying to win her back with love. You stop trying to prove your worth. You begin to rebuild your gravity. When you regain your center, she feels it instantly. Not through your words, but through the shift in the air. The stillness returns. The calm that once made her nervous comes back. And without realizing it, her mind starts orbiting you again. She'll pretend it doesn't affect her. She'll stay silent longer. She'll act like she's done. But deep inside, something wakes up again. Because gravity doesn't beg. It simply pulls. You see, she was never looking for a man who loved her endlessly. She was searching for a man who could hold her endlessly without losing himself. Your power was never in how much you love her. It was always in how little she can control her own mind around you. Because when you master your own emotions, you automatically command hers. When you become unshakable, her chaos bends to your calm. When you stop chasing, her instincts start chasing you. That is the law of emotional gravity. You hold your center, she spirals back. You lose it, she fades into not caring. So don't ask how to make her love you again. Ask how to become the man she cannot stop reacting to. Because love fades, but reaction, that's addiction. Every look, every silence, every decision you make either strengthens your field or weakens it. And she feels it in ways she'll never say out loud. She feels it when you pause before speaking. She feels it when you don't explain yourself. She feels it when you look at her with complete calmness. Not desire, not desperation, but power. That's when her mind bends. That's when her pulse betrays her logic. That's when she realizes she's no longer the one in control. And strangely enough, that's when she starts to feel safe again. Because safety to the feminine isn't peace. It's containment. And containment can only exist in the presence of masculine power. She'll never say it this way. She'll call it chemistry. She'll call it connection. She'll even call it fate. But it's none of those. It's rhythm. It's gravity. It's the law you now understand. And most men never will. So remember this. She didn't fall for you because you were kind. She fell for you because you were still. She didn't stay because you made her happy. She stayed because you made her feel alive. You became the mirror that reflected her hidden self. And for a time that was enough to keep her orbiting. When you lose your center, she forgets who she was in your gravity. But when you regain it, the reflection returns. The addiction restarts. Because addiction doesn't fade through time, it fades through predictability. Once you become unpredictable again, not in words, but in essence, the current restarts. She will never admit this truth, even to herself, because it strips away the illusion of control. It forces her to face that what she called love was a gravitational law she could not escape. You were never her choice. You were her instinct, and instinct doesn't negotiate. That is the cruel divine balance between man and woman. She becomes addicted to the man who reminds her of her chaos. And he becomes addicted to the control he feels when she dissolves in his calm. It's not love. It's the sacred exchange between polarity and giving in. Between the force that holds and the force that wants to be held. This is not romance. This is power. And power when mastered creates devotion far deeper than affection ever could. So stop trying to explain yourself to her. Stop trying to be understood. Stop lowering your gravity to match her mood. Rise above it. Stand still. Be the silence she cannot decode. Be the calm that drives her insane. Be the mirror that shows her everything she hides. Because when you live that, she will return. Not because you asked her to, but because her soul can't resist the field that wakes it up. That is your initiation. That is the ritual. You've seen the pattern now, the hidden structure of desire. You've seen what creates the addiction, what destroys it, and what restarts it. Now you know it was never about love. It was always about gravity. And the man who learns to hold gravity never needs to chase orbit again. In the next video, you'll discover the forbidden formula. How to wake up the emotional addiction once she's gone cold. Not by manipulation, not by pretending to care less, but by mastering the sacred art of emotional rhythm, the pulse that makes her heart remember you long after her mind has forgotten your name. Because love fades, but gravity remains.